At 25 years old, Samuel Taylor Coleridge was in retreat from a reputation as a political agitator in Bristol. He sought the comforts of nature and the company of like minds, and he took up residence in the village of Nether Stowey in North Somerset. While there, he wrote his most famous poetry. In February 1798, Coleridge wrote Frost at Midnight, which recalls his childhood in Ottery, St Mary.
The frost performs its secret ministry, unhelped by any wind. The owlet's cry came loud and hark again, loud as before. The inmates of my cottage all at rest have left me to that solitude, which suits abstruser musings, save that at my side my cradled infant slumbers peacefully. 'Tis calm indeed, so calm that it disturbs and vexes meditation with its strange and extreme silentness. Sea, hill and wood, with all their numberless goings-on in life, inaudible as dreams. But oh, how oft at school with most believing mind, with unclosed lids already had I dreamt of my sweet birthplace and the old church tower, whose bells, the poor man's only music, rang from morn to evening, all the hot fair day. I could inform the dullest author how he might write an interesting book, to relate the events of his own life with honesty. As to my life, 'tis all the charms of variety. There's a high life and low life, vices and virtues, great folly and some wisdom. In my second year I was carelessly left by my nurse, ran to the fire and pulled out a live coal, burnt myself dreadfully. While my hand was being dressed by Mr. Young, I spoke for the first time, so my mother informs me, and said, "Nasty Dr. Young." Before my third birthday I was inoculated. I mention this because I distinctly remember it, because at the end of this year I could read a chapter in the Bible. I became fretful and timorous and a telltale, and the schoolboys drove me from play and were always tormenting me, and hence I took no pleasure in boyish sports, but read incessantly. I used to lie by the wall and mope, and my spirits used to come upon me suddenly and in a flood, and then I was accustomed to run up and down the churchyard and act over all I had been reading on the docks, the nettles and the rank grass. At 6 years old I remember to have read Belisarius and Robinson Crusoe. And then I found the Arabian Nights entertainments, one tale of which, the tale of a man who was compelled to seek for a pure virgin, made so deep an impression on me I was haunted by spectres whenever I was in the dark. My father found out the effects which these books had produced, and burnt them.
Throughout his days in Ottery, Coleridge enjoyed the company of his father, who took great pleasure in his son's rapidly developing intellect. John Coleridge spent a good deal of time talking with young Sam, and Coleridge later recalled how his father would treat him to detailed explanations of the cosmos, pointing out the constellations and the planets, and in so doing laid the foundation of Coleridge's sense of mystery.
So I became a dreamer and acquired an indisposition to all bodily activity. I was fretful, inordinately passionate, as I could not play at anything, and I was slothful, because I could read and spell and had, I may truly say, a memory and understanding forced into almost an unnatural ripeness. I was despised and hated by the boys. I asked my mother one evening to cut my cheese entire, so that I might toast it. This was no easy matter, as it was a crumbly cheese. My mother, however, did. I went outside for something or other. In the meantime, my brother, Frank, minced my cheese to disappoint the favourite. I returned to see the exploit. In an agony of passion, I flew at Frank. He pretended to have been seriously hurt by my blow and flung himself to the ground. There he lay with outstretched limbs. I hung over him moaning, and with a great fright he leapt up and with a horse-laugh gave me a severe blow to the face. I seized a knife and was running at him when my mother came in and seized me by the arm. I expected a flogging, and struggling from her I ran away. I ran away to a hill at the bottom of which the Otter flows about 1 mile from Ottery. There I stayed. My rage died away, but my obstinacy vanquished my fears, and taking out a little shilling book which had, at the end, morning and evening prayers, I very devoutly repeated them, thinking at the same time with inward and gloomy satisfaction how miserable my mother must be. My mother was almost distracted, and at 10 o'clock at night I was cried by the crier in Ottery, and in 2 villages near it, with a reward offered for me. No one went to bed. Indeed, I believe half the town were up all one night. Once found, early next morning, I remember and never shall forget my father's face as he looked upon me, while I lay in the servant's arms, so calm, tears stealing down his face, for I was a child of his old age. Towards the latter end of September 1781, my father went to Plymouth with my brother Francis, who was to go as midshipman under Admiral Graves. The Admiral was a friend of my father's. My father settled my brother and returned on October the 4th, 1781. He was in high health and good spirits, and there was a bowl of punch made. My father gave a long and particular account of his travel. At length he went to bed very well and in high spirits. A short time after he had lain down, he complained of a pain in his bowels, which he was subject to from the wind. In a minute, my mother heard a noise in his throat. She spoke to him, but he did not answer. She spoke repeatedly in vain. Her shriek awaked me, and I said, "Papa is dead." How I came to think of his death I cannot tell, but so it was. Dead he was. After the death of my father we changed houses, and I remained with my mother till the spring of 1782, and was a day scholar to Parson Warren, my father's successor. Somewhere, I think about April 1782, Judge Buller, who had been educated by my father, sent for me, having procured a Christ Hospital presentation. So I donned the blue coat and yellow stockings of a charity boy, and as I bid my mother farewell, little did I know how seldom would I see my native place again.
Coleridge rarely returned to Ottery St Mary, except for brief visits in his university days, or to pay a courtesy visit to his brothers. He deeply regretted such an early departure from his native town, and he frequently mentions his time here in later work. From Christ's Hospital School, where he distinguished himself in the classics, he went on to Cambridge, and there began his remarkable and chaotic life as a public literary figure. Coleridge died in 1834, but the enduring popularity of his Rime of the Ancient Mariner and his influence of later poets and philosophers confirms his place as Devon's most remarkable man of letters.